Hello, everybody. Good evening. Happy Sunday. We made it. The week is over. The very first week of April is here, and I'm very happy to discuss with you what did happen this week in United States, but also globally. My name is Olga, known as, Honest Press across the socials. So if we're not acquainted yet, please go to first and foremost Blue Sky. That's where I'm at. But also, if you're still on Twitter shitter, we can connect there as well. Also Instagram and YouTube and whatnot, right? And if you're here on YouTube, please subscribe. If you just somehow stumbled upon this video, this will be useful. Keep watching. If you like it, click like and subscribe. It's very important so more people can get actual factual news. All right. Hey, James, good evening. Good evening. So happy to see you here. And by the way, all your comments and questions are very welcome. So please comment and I will address it and feature your comments, but also answer your questions as well. All right. So first things first, let's start with some moments of the week. And the biggest moment were those tariffs. And by the way, in today's analysis, I don't have a single video I have one of Donald Trump speaking. So you're welcome. First, Trump imposed bogus tariffs on 180 countries minus Belarus, Russia, North Korea, Cuba, and some others, right? We have 190, so he imposed over tariffs against 180 countries. And why did I say bogus? Because none of that makes sense. First, we need to understand how those tariffs came together or came about. It's because they simply figured out what is the deficit, meaning what is the difference between what United States buys and what United States sells, right? So for instance, I'm buying from you 20 apples and you buy from me 10 oranges. So the difference is 10, right? And so then somehow they decided to punish all those sellers who sell us more than we sell them, right? By taking this deficit and dividing it by exports. And that's how they came up with a certain number, which then they presented as a percentage. So, which means absolutely nothing. Also, if you pay attention to this map, where do I have it? Here we go. So this Trump presented this reciprocal tariffs. And if you pay attention, it says countries or country. And then somehow there's European Union. Well, European Union has a lot of countries in it, right? 27, 29, what is it at this point? And every single country has different type of tariff or rules, right? Germany sells us cars. Hungary, not so much. Slovakia is different from, Austria and whatnot. So at some point, they decided that European Union is a country, and then they just deducted the deficit of our trade, that we buy more from European Union than we sell them, and then divided it by the number of exports, and this is somehow the number. Essentially, what it means is as if I went to a store to buy something and then I demanded them to pay me, so we're even. Makes no sense. Okay. Also, it kind of looks like, and you can try it for yourself. If you go to ChatGPT and you say, how can I figure out the deficit problem? How can I even it out between United States and pick any country and start with the minimum of 10% of tariff. And then exactly those numbers are start to pop up. So, and then you just take out Russia because we want to schmooze with them at this point, and North Korea because we respect them and kind of like them, and take Cuba away and whatnot. And that's how you come up with exactly this list. So I'm not saying that's how they did it, but they kind of confirmed it as well. Now, if you are thinking, how did they come up with that? Was there some kind of a strategy? Well, there is a video by the White House press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, who shared her admiration for Trump, but then she also has spoken about how he came up with this idea of tariffs. Take a look.
The best thing about him that I've learned is he's a great listener, and he values the opinions of everybody in the room. And he'll be talking about tariffs, and he'll ask somebody in the room who he knows and everybody knows has no experience in the world of tariffs, but he genuinely wants to hear the opinions of everybody else before he makes a decision. And that's fascinating to me.
It is indeed quite fascinating that you ask and nobody with no knowledge about economy or tariffs or repercussion, anything that has to do with tariffs, and then you base your whole policy on it. And it kind of looks that way, that they did it exactly that way. Now, if you think, was it bogus enough? Yeah, they also did target penguins. Take a look.
Even penguins aren't safe from Donald Trump's tariffs, because the herd and McDonald Islands were listed by the White House yesterday among countries facing new trade tariffs of 10%. But these islands near Antarctica are completely uninhabited, except for penguins. It's all a bit confusing, but they may have been targeted simply because the islands are in Australian territory.
Surprising indeed. And then if you ask yourself, why Russia? Why not Russia? Well, thank goodness, you're lucky. Today, the head economic advisor to Donald Trump at the White House gave an interview where he explained why Russia was not included. Take a look.
Why did the president not include Russia on the list of countries who are facing tariffs?
There's obviously an ongoing negotiation with Russia and Ukraine, and I think the president made the decision not to conflate the two issues. It doesn't mean that Russia, the fullest of time, is going to be treated wildly different than every other country.
But Russia is one of the only countries, one of the few countries that is not subject to these new tariffs, aren't they?
They're in the middle of a negotiation, George, aren't they?
Well, I'm asking a different question. Why? And I just want to know why.
Would you?
But Ukraine is part of those negotiations, and Ukraine, the war-torn country, 3+ years into war, has been tariffed, so to speak, with 10%. And if you think, what do we buy from Ukraine? Ukraine is that bread basket, right? It feeds the world. So at that point, we buy quite a lot, even during the war, which helps Ukraine to sustain itself, right? Because at some point we say Ukraine has to pay for everything itself, but then we start tariffing the country and really hurting the country that is in the middle of the war. And we're going to talk about it, what happens in Ukraine and Russia and whatnot. And by the way, we're going to discuss the tariffs. Then we're going to talk about the latest national news, which I haven't even put in the newsletter yet. And by the way, if you're wondering what the hell is that newsletter, is the hell this. So if you go to honestnetwork.com, it's also in the description of this channel, you can subscribe to free newsletter. It's actually a briefing more than a newsletter where you can get factual news Monday through Friday for absolutely free. All right. And then Saturdays, we also have Canada edition weekly recap as we are heading into elections, right? I'm US based, but I'm paying attention to our dear neighbors up north because they're facing sort of a like situation as we did have a year ago. All right. So go subscribe to the newsletter. And what I want to say is with the tariff and that entire story. First, we did not believe it, as with a lot of things with Donald Trump, right? He says one thing and then he scares everybody. He feeds the news cycle. The news cycle explodes. Then he pulls back. Then he wants everybody to call him. And then there's entire attention is on him. And I guess that's the whole point. But what did happen this week is that he actually decided to go along with that. And then he crashed the market. And we're about to face something way worse tomorrow as the markets will go even further down, right? And we're going to discuss what did happen meanwhile. But here are some facts too. So the Trump administration on Wednesday said it was slapping 25% tariff on all beer imports, adding the beverage and empty aluminum cans to a list of products subject to its tariffs on aluminum. So if you like to drink beer, maybe you should rush to the store. You can keep me on your phone, whatever, and get that beer because tomorrow's going to be more. Now, Mexico and Canada avoided fresh tariffs, but those that were imposed before are still there, right? So they avoided this additional 10%, but still the tariff on the cars and car parts is still in place. And Canada's foreign minister, Melanie Joly, addressed those tariffs.
In Canada, what we've said is we take stock of what the U.S. has done, and at the same time, we know that the relationship will never be the same again. And that's my message to Europeans. The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently. We're the biggest client of the U.S. by far. We buy more from the U.S. than the UK, France, China, and Japan combined. So for anybody that has been in business before, when you treat your client, your best client, the way we've been treated, well, of course, it means that you want fundamentally to change the way you're operating. What we've
Understandable, right? Now we're going to talk about Canada in detail as we go along, so I'll keep you, sort of until then. James was asking, what about Ukraine? Ukraine is tariffed with 10%, and then we're going to talk more about Ukraine. I have videos and the latest updates there as well, so please stay tuned. Now, continuing on tariffs. Also, President Trump's planned tariffs will be negative across the world, as we already have seen throughout this week, with the damage depending on how far they go, right? As for now, well, per White House, so take it with a grain of salt or two. 50 leaders have called Trump to start negotiating on those tariffs. That's what the White House says. Lately, I find the readouts from other countries more reliable. So let's stay tuned. Let's see what will happen. What we do know is that Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has spoken to Secretary of State Rubio yesterday, and then tomorrow he will be meeting with President Trump at the White House, and then they will be having a briefing. Press conference at 2:40 p.m. Eastern. I got the media memo about that, so that will be tomorrow. Also, the Dodgers will be visiting the White House tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you're into that. Now, another thing what we need to mention is that Trump also eliminated this so-called de minimis rule. What is it? It means that if a container arrives from China or Hong Kong, and it is declared that the whole value of this container is less than $800, it can not only go tariff-free or tax-free into United States, but it also doesn't have to, therefore, wait, right? Wait in line to be tariffed, to be examined, and so on and so forth. So this is how we end up having our goods very cheaply available on Amazon, TikTok Shop, what is there, this sort of Temu and all that kind of stuff, right? So since this is eliminated, it's not just that they're going to be a tariff, right? So if something on Temu was $1, at this point it will be $1.54 because Trump has imposed 10% tariffs on China, then another 10, and now 34. So altogether it's 54. It also will be waiting. Right. So for that reason, the companies have tried to stock up. And so our imports went all the way up through the months of February and March because the companies, as much as Amazon, tried to get those goods so they won't need to be waiting in advance. But when it comes to, you can stock up only as much. Right. So when it comes to Black Friday sale or, any type of holidays by the end of the year, we will see this because we will have delays. Because aside from the tariff itself and the tax itself, also the delivery will take way longer. Got it? All right. So also, I talked about the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu is here. Okay. So under the sweeping new tariff policy, why Netanyahu is here, Israel is being tariffed with 7 to negotiate that. There's also another talk as Israel has been targeted today by Hamas. I'm going to have a readout in just a second. So let's end on the tariff note. India does not plan to retaliate against U.S. President Donald Trump's 26% tariff on imports from Asian nation, an Indian government official said, citing ongoing talks for a deal between the countries. So essentially, India is not interested to impose tariffs because why? The tariffs are a tax on your own customer and consumer. But if you ever dealt with any type of trade, there's a thing called Incoterms, right? This is where every single rule that applies to export or import is put into place. So the tariffs are never included into the cost of shipping or the cost of product plus shipping for the seller. Only upon arrival, right? And it all depends on those Incoterms, who pays what, right? Usually it's the buyer that pays the tariff and then includes that cost into the final pricing, right? So ultimately, everything will go up in price for us, and not really much for the producers for this. So essentially, that's what India decided to do, is not to impose counter tariff. So the pricing for their imports will still stay the same. It doesn't mean that we would be earning more if India would have imposed this tariff, because then, again, as I explained, it all comes down to the final consumer, the final buyer who pays it. Now, what did happen to the markets? I did mention that they started tanking, as you see here. Altogether, $3 trillion were lost. At this point, we're about $6 trillion. That's what's estimated for Monday. Some people say it might go down to $9 trillion loss. If you think about it, Bezos and Musk each lost $28 billion. And yeah, that's what we see. Here, this was the Friday update. The U.S. stock market lost $3 trillion the day after Trump imposed tariffs, and then it went just worse, right? And so now the experts are estimating that the probability of United States going into recession is now at 60%, and then we will see what will happen throughout this week. Now, as to Donald Trump, well, do you think he cared much? Well, he traveled on Thursday already. On Thursday, he traveled to Miami because he had a dinner, LIV dinner that was sponsored by Saudi. It was with Saudi Arabia, but it was sponsored by Saudi air travel company and also TikTok. And this was on that promo banner that I don't want to show, not to promote them, but it was mentioned that TikTok was one of the sponsors. And if you are bothering about TikTok, Trump is still negotiating. Essentially, he wants to, I guess, negotiate his share. So this sale is extended by 75 more days. It is also sad that Amazon wants to buy TikTok. TikTok is the biggest competitor to Amazon live sale, right? Because people are selling heavily on TikTok. But also the founder of OnlyFans has built a group of investors together to buy TikTok. So I'll let you think what that might lead to. But this is Trump on Friday at Mar-a-Lago.
Everybody having a good time? A good time? Is everybody a Republican?
Is everybody a Republican? Interesting. And if you saw, there was this little thing, I put news, right, that he completely ignored. But there is one thing about Lithuania, because we meaning United States, we lost 4 soldiers who tragically died while training in Lithuania with the NATO. What did happen? They were traveling. The road somehow, was not predictable, and then they drowned in their vehicle. Now, what later followed is that United States government completely ignored even the notion that they were missing, then that the 3 bodies were found, and then 4 bodies were found, and that they were actually being brought to United States. This actually came out because the news articles and news stories started showing Lithuanians honoring those 4 soldiers. Since we haven't seen anything about those soldiers on television nor in the newspapers, here is a social media post that speaks about those 4 soldiers that did tragically pass away in Lithuania. Now, Trump did not meet them. He decided to be in Mar-a-Lago doing this instead of welcoming those soldiers. Remember that big story that every single news anchor spoken about when President Biden was receiving and honoring the bodies of those who passed, the soldiers who passed in Afghanistan. And then he looked at his watch twice because he was thinking when the plane arrived, and then they made a big story about it. Now, this fellow wasn't even there. Now, let's learn more about those soldiers.
People of Lithuania today honored 4 American soldiers killed there last week.
School kids waved American and Lithuanian flags as the coffins were carried through Cathedral Square in Vilnius. The soldiers died when their armored vehicle sank in a swamp during a training exercise.
The family of Staff Sergeant Jose Duenas Jr. says he had a huge heart and a pure soul. He leaves a 1-year-old son.
Staff Sergeant Edvin Franco is remembered as an exceptional leader. He was the father of a 6-month-old boy.
Private First Class Dante Taitano was called the spark of the team.
And Staff Sergeant Troy Knutson Collins was a talented mechanic. He is survived by 5 children.
The commanding general of the 3rd Infantry Division said, "No words can capture the depth of sorrow or gratitude we feel for their service."
The latest report is that altogether, with tariffs and the tanking economy and with everything that you would add into it that Trump should be dealing with, his latest statement is that he is not really giving much F. Right? President Trump is at the peak of just not giving an F anymore. Bad news stories doesn't give an F. He's going to do what he's going to do, per White House official. How charming is that? He also tweeted that only the weak will fail. And then he worried about the big businesses who should not be worried about the tariffs because they know they're here to stay, but they're focused on the big, beautiful deal, which will supercharge our economy. Very important going on right now. Blubbity, blubbity, bloob, bloob. Means absolutely, wholeheartedly nothing. Now, what I wanted to show you that, well, yesterday was April 5th, and the so-called hashtag hands-off movement. Because since Trump doesn't care, or the administration, people did. And people did show up in masses. And so this is Boston yesterday, where you can see thousands of people marched. I think altogether it was, 1.4 million or something like that? Please tell me the latest number if you are in Boston or anywhere else, so I can update you on that. So also what we saw is people in Wisconsin and people in Portland. I do have the pictures, but really all around the United States. As you see here, people were marching, people were bringing their signs and really speaking up, right? MAGA, make the asshole go away, and so on and so forth. So really big movement. If you were part of it, thank you. And thank you for being, the face and really the voice of our nation, and perhaps being there for those who could not be there. Now, also what's really interesting, Miami did show up. Not in big numbers, but I mean, it's Florida. Take a look.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy.
And then also Dallas. I guess not everything is so cool in Texas. And then Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine in Manhattan has addressed this march, which was huge in New York. It went all over. If you would look at it, right, it would go up to 45 minutes. That's how long not the parade, but the march was, which really resembled the parade. If you know, St. Patrick's Parade or whatnot in New York, was really huge and it was humongous. And yes, it was raining and it was kind of cold. People didn't care. People did show up. Take a look what he said.
I have never seen a march like this in New York City. We are on Fifth Avenue. It's hard to tell how many people are here. It's got to be hundreds of thousands. The streets are so jammed, it's hard to walk. We're not even moving right now. This march definitely goes for an hour in each direction. This is New Yorkers coming out with a clear message to Donald Trump, to Elon Musk, to the Republicans. Keep your hands off.
Right? And then speaking of New York, not New York City, but New York State, in Buffalo, a MAGA crowd tried to tackle those protesters in Buffalo, New York. Take a look what the response was. Shame, shame, shame. Let me check your comments real quick. James says, can't wait to see Dow Jones tracker. Yes, tomorrow. Yep. Lynn, I promise you this was the only Trump voice clip. Suckers and losers. Yeah. And this is also, so only one was white. I guess that's why he didn't care. James is referring probably to the 4 soldiers. Unfortunately, this was my thought too. But I think it didn't matter much either. Okay, so world leaders also started reacting. We saw Foreign Minister of Canada, Melanie Joly, but also Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says it is the American people who will pay the biggest price for these unjustified tariffs. This is why our government will not be seeking to impose reciprocal tariffs. Not because they suck. I just explained it to you, right? Because if they would impose anything, it would just harm their own buyers. So at this point, you can't win, literally. But Trump, of course, tomorrow will flip it and say, oh, you didn't want to fight with me, right? Because look, China did impose 34% tariff, right? China did respond with a reciprocal tariff, and they said, okay, you go with 34%, we're going to go with 34%. Why? Because a lot of things are not even being made in the United States. And so, yes, businesses, in order to survive, will rely on buying from China. So China will win either way. That's why Wall Street Journal yesterday said that the winner of this tariff war is actually Xi Jinping. So Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said that Spain will protect its companies and workers and will continue to be committed to an open world. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said, we don't want growing trade barriers. We don't want a trade war. We want to find our way back to a path of trade and cooperation together with the US so that people in our countries can enjoy a better life. Irish Trade Minister Simon Harris said the EU and Ireland stand ready to find a negotiated solution with the US. Negotiation and dialogue is always the best way forward. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that we will do everything we can to work towards an agreement with the United States with the goal of avoiding a trade war that would inevitably weaken the West in favor of other global players. And I want for you to pay attention to that exactly little part of the sentence. It will weaken the West. Who's winning here? Putin, North Korea. Yeah, they don't face any terrorists, but also we're lifting sanctions off of Russia. We're opening the markets. I'll talk about that in a second, but So also Manfred Weber, the president of EPP, the largest party in European Parliament, said to our American friends, today isn't Liberation Day, it's Resentment Day. Donald Trump's tariffs don't defend fair trade, they attack it out of fear and hurt both sides of the Atlantic. So, President of France, Macron, also tweeted about it. Do I have the tweet or did I think I do. There we go. So he said that in these times of upheaval, one certainty remains in the face of the world's great shocks. We must move forward together. Today, I spoke with British Prime Minister Starmer following my conversation 2 days ago with President von der Leyen, which is the president of European Commission, as the global economy feels the impact of the tariffs imposed by the United States. We reaffirmed our determination to closely coordinate our positions in the ongoing discussions with President Donald Trump. So, since Trump sees European Union as a country, according to that, here we go, that little graph here. So why not? Why wouldn't European Union respond in one unified voice? Now, I want to show you a video of somebody who I dealt with a lot since I covered the Biden administration as White House correspondent, Andrew Bates. He, He was the deputy press secretary to President Biden. He traveled everywhere, literally everywhere with President Biden, the weekends, the official travel, everything. And he was the one constantly posting, keep the faith, as everybody was fighting to keep Biden running. Now, in the running. Okay, before the pass the torch thing. So, here's an interview that he gave where he spoke about those tariffs and what Trump actually did to those who trusted him the most and voted for him.
I think that what you're seeing is he has broken the core promises he made to the American people. I think that he told people what he thought that they wanted to hear, but once he's in power, he's doing the opposite, and he's been using folks. He inherited an economy that was the best performing of any in the world, bar none. But in 2 months, he's crashing that economy with the biggest tax increase on middle-class families in 50 years, raising the prices that he promised them he was going to lower, breaking his #1 promise to them, and at the same time taxing them so that he can turn around and pass a tax giveaway for Elon Musk and other billionaires and himself and big corporations.
And that's exactly what they're doing. They started on voting on this bill to eliminate tax from those big players. So whatever they lose on the market, they're going to get back through the tax. Now, hi, Lynn. Lynn says Congress needs to act. Absolutely. Like yesterday and the day before yesterday. Yeah, so we can agree. And James says if manufacturing comes back, our phones will cost $3,000 instead of $1,000, and Trump's Bibles will cost $180 instead of $60. Exactly. Lynn says we're the biggest losers. Manufacturing is not coming back. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So, what does it mean for small businesses? I found this great video. This was done by a creator who's a small business owner, and she kind of played both sides. What if she were to talk to the White House that did impose those tariffs? So it is playful, it is upbeat, and it pretty much hits the point as to what does it mean exactly for American businesses. Take a look.
What? Okay. Hi, I am the founder and CEO of a US-based footwear company that has 12 US employees and has created fully convertible high heel technology. Where do you manufacture? Our product is obviously really unique, and so we require specialty injection molding, which is only really available at scale for footwear in China. Why? Don't you manufacture in the USA? So we actually don't have scaled footwear manufacturing or really apparel manufacturing of any kind in the US. Okay, well, I think we should. Yeah, I mean, that would be really great. We'd be able to manufacture in much faster times and have more direct control over our supply chain, but we physically don't have manufacturers here. Okay, well, what if I change your import rate from 10% to 99%? We still wouldn't have US manufacturers here. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it right now. Why? Look, I don't think we should be so reliant on China, so if you're gonna insist on manufacturing in China, I'm gonna charge you 99%. Okay, to be clear, I'm not insisting on manufacturing in China. That it's just the only place I could manufacture. So, not the USA? No, not right now. I mean, if you want to like invest in making some manufacturing facilities, it would probably take a couple of years and several $1 million, but if you want to do that, I mean, we could talk about it when those are ready. No, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it right now. But I mean, a 60 to 99% tariff could like bankrupt a lot of businesses. You should have thought about that before you started manufacturing in China. Again, there's not really anywhere else that could manufacture a product like that's what they specialize in as an economy. Okay, well, what about like, I don't know, Vietnam? Can you go to Vietnam? That would be better than China. Well, as people in retail will tell you, it's actually not that simple. It's not apples to apples, because like a production minimum in China is 200 pairs per shoe, for instance. And in Vietnam, it would be 3,000 pairs per shoe, because unlike China, they don't have their own material suppliers. And so they have to import all the materials from China still to just make them in Vietnam. And so it only makes sense to import them at that cost if they're doing it in bulk. So small brands that can't make 3,000 pairs per run would get squished. What I'm hearing is I should also tariff Vietnam. That's really not what I'm trying to say. Actually, why don't I just tariff everywhere and everything so that you have to make it in America? Again, that's not really an option. Look, if you're not manufacturing...
Right? And I know people who manufacture in, let's say, China, and they sell things to Europe, and people who deal with cosmetics and bags and whatnot. And if you're familiar with these industries, they pre-produce half a year in advance. So right now, at this point, people are producing things that we will be buying for Christmas. And so everything is prepaid, everything is set in stone to be produced. Now, there is a 54% tariff with China. So now they're trying to go to Indonesia. And I know somebody who spent a month negotiating with Indonesia. Now Indonesia is facing also 49% tariff. So you cannot win. And now they have to fulfill those orders, which will bankrupt them. But they have to fulfill them, because otherwise, then, they're not just going bankrupt, they will be sued big time. And also, Christmas will be very empty. So for this reason, this is a cluster F. Just so we clear. Now, if anybody's missing this guy, maybe.
Can I see you as my...
Because now we have this. Is everybody having a good time? No, really. Now, speaking of missing, if you're missing Melania Trump, she was honoring, what was she doing? International Women of Courage Awards. And she gave a speech. Take a look.
Throughout my life, I have harnessed the power of love as a source of strength during challenging times. Love has inspired me to embrace forgiveness, nurture empathy, and exhibit bravery in the face of unforeseen obstacles. Today, we celebrate courage, a strength that is based in love.
Fancy. Moving on to China. Now, China's state-run media started trolling the crap out of United States. Oh, gee. So, there are 3 videos. One video is, by the way, it's all AI produced. And then by the end of that whole video, because the video is like 4 or 5 minutes, I shared it on socials. But by the end of the video, they say this video is AI manufactured, but this tariff crisis and economic nosedive is completely man-made in Washington, D.C. So I hate it that I love this Chinese state media propaganda, but that's where we are. So take a look at the first clip that they mass-produced and really spread all around the world. Take a look.
We have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd.
From this moment on, America's decline is over.
Liberation Day promised us the stars, but tariffs kill our cheap Chinese pies.
I just spent $33 on dinner tonight.
Deals just hot air from your top.
What are you talking about? Was $8.25 now $6?
I just bought groceries or groceries, as Trump said. SNL was great yesterday. I really watched the cold open. It was real. It was real. Anyway, but it cost me long and whatnot. The second video they produced again with AI, and they have a robot, and the robot is called Tariff.
System initialized. Power levels stable. Memory matrix online. Behavior protocols engaged. Data links to global trade systems established.
Welcome online. I'm Dr. Mallory, your creator. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dr. Mallory.
Do you know who you are?
I understand the parameters of my existence. I am Tariff, technical artificial robot for international fiscal functions. My existence is defined by the execution of international fiscal actions, with the primary directive being the imposition of tax on foreign imports.
What is the ultimate purpose of your program?
To protect the interests of the American people.
Exactly. We need you as a weapon to protect us, now more than ever. Let's run some initial tests. This should deter foreign competitors and protect our industries.
Initiating moderate tariffs. Calculating consequences. Initial results positive. Industrial production up.
Not good enough. Let's rev it up.
Aggressive tariffs. Implementing now. Calculating consequences. Unemployment rates rising. Cost of living increasing. Disruption of trade.
Excellent. The economy is adjusting. You are protecting us.
So essentially, this robot chooses self-destruction as a 5-minute clip. And this was presented by Xinhua, which showed this robot named Tariff. And they did the trade wars and unrest, and he's choosing self-destruction. So on Friday, China retaliated with its own import duties and export restrictions. And then now, as you know, in China, there is nothing that is not approved by the Communist Party. And they do have this comedian that completely trolls Trump. Trump. He speaks like Trump, but he looks Chinese. So take a look. That's their new hero.
Folks, we're in Chongqing, the city of hot pot of China, and we have to eat hot pot today.
What do we have here? Looking good. It's good. I'm hungry. I'm ready to order. What do you have to recommend? Ladu. Yuan Yang. Do you know Yuan Yang?
他一直在跟我们说还要鸳鸯鸳鸯鸳鸯锅
鸳鸯
他说的是英文你不懂
She understands me. Tremendous lady. I like the Yuan Yang hot pot, the twink flavor hot pot.
You got the point. So you can watch the full clips are available everywhere, I guess, across TikTok. Again, I hate sharing Chinese propaganda, but that's where we are. And that's the way they found to address it. And by the way, their AI is very advanced with all of this. Anyway, so let's get to some national news. So the U.S. Senate approved a Republican budget blueprint early on Saturday, yesterday, that aims to extend trillions of dollars worth of President Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts and sharply reduce government spending. The Trump administration has appointed also a national security lawyer who entered the Foreign Service just 4 years ago. And guess what his job is right now? He will be the official overseeing the State Department's global workforce. 4 years ago. That's 2021. That's when the dude started working. Okay. So according to 3 sources familiar with the matter and an internal email seen by Reuters. Now, to some international news, U.S. Customs agents began collecting President Donald Trump's unilateral 10% tariff on all imports from many countries on yesterday, with higher levies on goods from 57 larger trading partners due to start next week. So, market will show for sure. Now, as to president or shade president or VP, whatever, Elon Musk, he doesn't like the tariffs. I mean, is that a surprise? And I do guesstimate this being a reason for him to, to be announced to stop whatever he's doing or be finished with the Doge, whatever agenda by May 1st. He doesn't like it. Certainly, he has companies everywhere. It does hurt him a lot. I just told you, $28 billion lost already in just a couple of days. So he spoke about the world freedom and the tariff-free life between U.S. and Europe yesterday. Take a look.
I hope that I hope that the United States and Europe can establish a very close partnership. We obviously are. There's an alliance already, but I'm hopeful that there can be a very close relationship with America and Europe. And I'm hopeful, for example, with the tariffs, that at the end of the day, I hope it is agreed that both Europe and the United States should move, ideally, in my view, to a zero.
Come on with the point. Anyway, he wants world freedom. So, but worldwide, people weren't having it. In Berlin, there was a huge protest yesterday against this fella.
Elon, fuck you, Elon. Fuck you, Elon.
I love it. All right. Yeah, I guess just to close, hopefully the music tried to bring something for everyone, all the generations, and some, German and American as well. And thank you all for coming out today and keep up the fight. Thank you.
Okay. So not all Europe is Europe, right? I understand that Trump would refer to European Union as a country, but it has a lot of countries. And yesterday, one country was protesting against all the wrong things, kind of. Italy. So not all protested against right causes. So thousands of Italians protested in Rome against the EU's 800 billion euro arms program. So this program here is manned and passed in European Parliament and Commission to rebuild the military force, right? So essentially to buy more equipment, to start producing more, to be ready for what might come, right? When it comes to the Baltic states from the Russians, when it comes to Poland and whatnot. So of course, everybody would need to up their spending up to 5%. And so for that reason, Italy doesn't want to be anywhere near it. So they did protest it. protest against it. Now, the protests were directed against Prime Minister Meloni, Defense Minister Crosetto, and Foreign Minister Tajani. Take a look, it's pretty impressive. As you see. And by the way, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that the tariffs are not the end of the world. She will not be doing any reciprocal tariffs, and she stressed that not to do any tariffs in response to Trump, and EU will actually respond, which will tank the market even further. So this is the preview of the week to come. Now, in other news, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed the tariffs with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. I told you about that, and they presented a readout, and then tomorrow he speaks with Trump. Netanyahu, again, is traveling to meet Trump on Monday. Again, 2:40 p.m. is their conference if you want to tune in. So the United Nations called for the world to rally behind quake-hit Myanmar on Saturday as the death toll, check this out, rose to 3,354 people, while a former USAID or USAID official said that US aid team had received notice they were losing their jobs after arriving in the disaster zone. They arrived there and they were called by the State Department and told, pack your stuff, get out. 3,500 people dead, 4 and something thousand hurt, 200 or so missing, and we're not doing anything. Turkey's main opposition leader on Sunday pledged further protests against the jailing of the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu. That's the one who goes against the president, Tayyip Erdogan. That's his chief rival. And so they're aiming to sustain Turkey's biggest demonstrations in more than a decade. And they promise to keep fighting and protesting. So he will be released and can then participate in that election. So now let's talk more about Canada. So in good news, we saw the former Prime Minister Trudeau, who passed the torch to his former chief of staff, deputy chief of staff, and the daughter of a former Haitian prime minister. She is running now in his former electoral district, and her name is Marjorie Michel. And this is how they met constituents together. Take a look.
This is a new beginning, the future's ours, in case you didn't know.
And we know that Trudeau has been, targeted for his looks and whatnot. But what we did know that Prime Minister Carney has been also hot cold, or will be hot cold, which actually did happen at a rally this week. Take a look at his reaction and the hot calling.
By building the strongest economy in the G7. And that's what we're going to do. But okay, I'm supposed to go back the way I came in, but I think I'm going to go back that way.
Lead us, Big Daddy. And by the way, to your comments, James, no, I can't imagine Obama doing. Oh, Lynn said that. Sorry, Lynn said that. Imagine if Obama did this in terms of market and tariffs. I wonder if MAGA would be mad. They were mad about a tan suit. Yeah. Of course. And Trump is tweeting basically doubling down on tariffs and beautiful thing. Yeah, I mean, there's no other message received. Kremlin is off on weekends. So would be nice if ICE would take Netanyahu to El Salvador. No, they won't. No. Okay, so continue on Canada. Poilievre, or whatever his name is, the conservative leader, he at this point he is calling Canada as the capital of fentanyl, or fentanyl capital, which is really resembling with what actually President Trump says and has said in the campaign. Take a look.
We're going to lock up the drug kingpins that have made Canada the fentanyl capital of the world. Those are all steps that Trump is demanding, but more importantly, they're all things that we need to do to secure our own country. You know, I don't want to fight.
No, you won't fight. He will make you a satellite state, and then make a deal with Russia so your north is protected from China. Mark my words. Okay, vote. By the way, what's going on with the voting in Canada here? That's what it is. So Liberals are leading 44.2%. Conservatives are 37.3%. New Democrat is 8.1%, and then you see others. So at this point, yes, the lead is there. But again, I really encourage everybody not to relax too early, because we did that. We did that. We were there, done that thing, didn't get any t-shirt, lost, and now we're in this. So fight, elbows up, whatever works, fight. Now, other news about Canada. So on April 5th, yesterday, the East Block of Parliament Hill in Ottawa was placed in lockdown after a man barricaded himself inside. They sent the robots there. They thought there will be bombs. Nothing was found. And also at this point, since the election has been called, you know, the Parliament, the whole hill is pretty much empty. So not sure what that was about, but thankfully nobody was hurt, nor it escalated. Now, in the US, President Trump urged Republicans to oppose a measure rebuking his tariff policy, and but it did pass. So it's the first resolution that passed against Trump's will. And this is a pretty big thing, not because of the result. So the resolution was to disable Trump to pass those tariffs against Canada, because he's using national security measures. And then what I just showed you, the fentanyl capital, whatever, they're using the fentanyl as the reason to pass those tariffs against Canada. And so Republicans did join Democrats and passed a resolution prohibiting Trump from doing so. Now, Trump also said that once it arrives at his desk, he will use his power to veto it, but it was essentially the first resolution that passed against his will, which is a big thing, and some may call it as the first crack in the wall. Now, in response to U.S. tariffs, Prime Minister Carney announced measures in return, including 25% tariffs on U.S. vehicles. Stellantis, that's the company producing, halted production in Canada and Mexico due to the new tariffs, temporarily laying off 900 U.S. employees. So much to the fact that, production will return to United States. Meanwhile, factories are closing. Is anybody going to put it in the readout and White House? No. Today we got 3 readouts. I didn't even share it. It was all about how big we're winning. So European NATO allies and Canada are cautious about U.S. demands to up the defense budget commitment to 5%. Foreign Minister of Canada, Melanie Joly, questioned it. What will be actually the plan there? Now, why U.S. is doing that, right? Because at some point it sounds like, okay, Europe needs to fight, Canada needs to fight, and why don't they want to spend 5%? U.S. is asking. The idea for United States is to actually fire up to 9,000 U.S. troops and withdraw them and fire them, right? Withdraw them from Europe. They're usually stationed in Eastern Europe, and fire them, and then focus on the Indo-Pacific region, right? Now, why do they want European Union to up 5%? Well, they're spending to 5%, of course, because you have to fill the gaps that the United States will be leaving. But how do they want to do it? And that is the biggest question here, which leads to the questioning of Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly and others, because Europe to buy more military equipment from the United States, such as F-16s, F-35s, and whatnot. But in those agreements, as according to Germans, right, the German newspaper Bild did read those agreements where it states that United States, while selling something to our allies, not adversaries, still decides how this can be used, can just decide not to deliver, and can prohibit any usage that they think is not corresponding with U.S. policy. Now, explain to me, will the White House, this current White House, allow Germany or Latvia or whoever to use F-16s and F-35s and any military equipment against Russia? If we're so even scared to pass those bogus tariffs against Russia, while we're not even trading with Russia at this point? I'll let you answer that. So, meanwhile, Canada is recruiting everybody who's fired from the United States, which is really the best case scenario, because otherwise they're going to go to China. So, Canada is recruiting American scientists affected by major layoffs at the U.S. health agencies. While Canada is well positioned to attract talent, experts highlight the need for more research funding. So, of course, Canadian scientists saying, okay, you're going to bring more talent, maybe invest more money. But altogether, Canada is positioned really well to hire those scientists, but also professors. Like Timothy Snyder, Dr. Timothy Snyder is now at the Toronto University of Toronto. And actually, the whole department at Yale University just transitioned to University of Toronto. So here we go. Now, as to Israel, Palestinian militia group Hamas said it fired a bunch of rockets, actually 10, into Israel's southern territory on Sunday, today, in response to Israeli massacres of civilians in Gaza. So what did also happen, and what White House decides not to address, is that in Palestine, or in Gaza specifically, a Palestinian U.S. citizen has been killed by Israeli forces, and it has been caught on video. It is a real fact, and White House is not addressing it. Let's see if they're going to speak about it tomorrow. I doubt it, but it's actually a big thing, but it leads to nothing. Again, because this is our now new policy type of thing. So Israel's military said about 10 projectiles were fired, but most were successfully intercepted. Israel's Channel 12 reported a direct hit in the southern city of Ashkelon in Israel. Now, as to Ukraine, it keeps being bombarded. And they're just targeting civilians. It's a massacre. At this point, every time we talk to anybody in Ukraine, whether it is officials or people who I know, relatives, neighbors, friends, it's worse. It's way worse because the civilians are being targeted. Civilians are being killed. This horrible video from Kryvyi Rih. And Kryvyi Rih, just so you understand, this city is where Zelensky is from. This is the city where his parents live in. So for that reason, it's a Putin's thing to target that city. They were targeting Kiev, they were targeting Kharkiv, they were targeting Kryvyi Rih, Dnipro, and whatnot. And so in Kryvyi Rih, they targeted, literally bombed kids in kindergarten. They were in kindergarten, they went outdoors, and then they were playing. It was a kids' playground. They targeted kids. 19 people got killed. It's horrible. 9 of them are children, from 3 to 15 years old. Here's a video of, not a crazy video or anything, but this is the video from
Зустрілися.
wrong one. Here we go.
Это был прилет.
Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой. Жесть, жесть. Где-то вот там оно упороло. Люди лежат. Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой.
I'm going to quit right here because it's going to get graphic and I don't want you to experience that. But altogether, just imagine 9 children dying and screaming, Mommy, why? What is it for? How did I deserve it? It's horrible. It's something that really will never leave you, so to speak. Zelensky put out a tweet today. Here it is. He said that the pressure on Russia is still insufficient, and the daily Russian strikes on Ukraine prove it. Last night, ballistic missiles were launched against Kiev, while attack drones targeted the region. Strikes also hit Mykolaiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Khmelnytsky, and Cherkasy regions. The number of air attacks is increasing. This is how Russia reveals its true intentions: to continue the terror for as long as the world allows it. Over the past week, they launched more than 1,460 guided serial bombs, nearly 670 attack drones, and over 30 missiles of various types against Ukrainian cities and villages, against our people. More than 20 of them took place just last night. Every strike targets our people, our children. They are waging a war against children playing on playgrounds. My condolences to all the families and loved ones of the victims. I thank all of our services and service members who are helping and saving Ukrainians. And now these attacks are Putin's response to all international diplomatic efforts. Each of our partners, the United States, all of Europe, the entire world has seen that Russia intends to continue the war and the killing. That is why there can be no easing of pressure. All efforts must be aimed at guaranteeing security and bringing peace closer. And that's why I wanted to read the whole statement, because this really sums up everything that does happen. And here's a video by American Volunteer Unit where they depicted how Russian plane was firing and targeting civilians and villages, and then Ukrainian response came and hit that plane and knocked it out. So it's not graphic or anything, so take a look.
There it goes, there it goes, there it goes. Hey, look! Come on, come on! Hit him! Hit him, motherfucker! Come on! Do it!
James, you're saying sorry for the language? You just heard the word offer. Whatnot. Lynn says, just in, Japan's benchmark Nikkei index plunged more than 8% on Monday, deepening a global stocks rout triggered by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. See? And this is just Monday. I mean, we're sitting here. It's 9:04 p.m. Eastern in New York. 6:04 in LA. Yeah, Japan, Asian markets are opening. What we're going to wake up to is one question. What are we going to wake up to on Friday is a whole different question. And I'm not even daring to think about the end of the month. Do you think he's going to pull back and say, okay, stop, let's negotiate? Depends. It depends. Lynn says that's heartbreaking about Ukrainians. Yes, it is. Indeed. Yes, it is. And the cool video about shooting. Yeah. Okay. So, I got that. Okay. So Russia's defense ministry said on Saturday that Ukraine had increased its attacks on Russian energy, hitting targets 14 times in the last 24 hours. Despite a U.S. brokered moratorium, a charge Ukraine's military called fake and disinformation. So you're going to target civilians. You're going to kill children on playgrounds. Ukraine knocks out your ability to do so. And now you say that Ukraine is violating. What are you not violating? Anything you sign or agree to is not worth the paper that it is printed on. Stupid. Now, Russian envoy was in Washington, D.C. Here's his glorious picture. I'm going to save you the video. But here he is, Kirillov, or Kirill, whatever. Kirillov, I think, yes. What is it? Yeah, so he's the Russian envoy to America, and he met with the press. You see here, Ortes, the first channel, Russia channel. It's like we're not even talking about RT channel, which is sort of like an online type of thing. We're talking about the first national television in Russia, second national television of Russia, and all of those mics as you see here. So it's all allowed at this point. So he mentioned that Russia is misunderstood. Russia is a peacemaker. And that U.S. has to do a better job addressing Russia's needs. The rapist has needs, okay? Can the victim please take positions that the rapist thinks is more favorable for the rapist to continue? Disgusting. They also said that the Russian market is open for American business, and it is to come. after those negotiations in DC, and that also the direct flights will resume. So there is no direct flight to Russia. Everybody who flies to Moscow or any Russian city has to go through Turkey. So they will resume those direct flights from the United States. Well, good luck. So, what else do I have for you? Now, meanwhile, NATO's Rutte, right? He met with the foreign ministers level, right? Melanie Jolie was there and others. Rubio in Brussels. So they met on April 3rd and 4th, and they were talking about how they're going to conquer Russia and how that thing is going to end. And here is NATO's Rutte again covering for the White House, for White House's change in rhetoric and the alliance with Russia. Take a look.
What happens in Ukraine, Russia continues to be the most significant long-term security threat to NATO and the U.S. Trump, his lead negotiator Witkoff, have said statements suggesting the exact opposite, that Russia, Putin himself, are interested in peace, engaging genuinely and credibly in the negotiation process, and also that they do not see Russia as a long-term security threat, but rather potentially a partner in all sorts of productive and fruitful deals to be done. Can you acknowledge this discrepancy between your position and that of the Trump administration, and what does it suggest for the future of NATO cohesion?
I'm not sure it is an entirely fair assessment of the position of the US administration, but let me start from a different angle. When President Trump came in, the war was not developing in the right direction. We saw the front line moving from the east to the west, and we want the front line to move from the west to the east.
What are you even talking about? What east to the west? It's the entire front line. Anyway. Okay.
The Russians were very slowly, and against a lot of people dying or getting seriously wounded.
Is it because, sorry for interruption, sir, is it because U.S. cut the intelligence, U.S. paused the aid? Is it that why? Or were you giving Russia time for Ukraine to lose in Kursk, which actually did not happen? And then Trump went along with that lie to say that Ukrainians are encircled and they will be, killed. And then he negotiated with Putin so Ukrainians won't be killed. But actually, the true story was that Ukrainians were never encircled. Continue.
Put it on their side, and by the way, also the Ukrainian side, but they were making very slow progress. And we know that many people have died or are seriously injured because of this war. We know that some cities have been destroyed. The whole infrastructures have been.
Isn't he just repeating what Trump says, right? About those golden domes in Kiev and everything is so destroyed and cities are destroyed. I heard it somewhere.
Destroyed. So for President Trump coming in to say, I want to do the utmost to bring this war to a just and lasting end, I think is commendable. And that's what I'm saying. And
oh, God. We were promised end of the war in 24 hours, which did not happen, right? Then we were promised the war in 3 days. Should end, right? No. Now we're in the middle of negotiations, and everything what we have at this point for a fact is that the sanctions against Russia are lifted by United States, that their economy is rebuilding, that we're not sanctioning them for working with Iranians, for working with anybody else. We're just helping them to win? And meanwhile, Lithuania and Poland and Latvia are putting troops on the borders. They're mining the borders, leaving the Ottawa Agreement where you're not supposed to mine the borders of a country. Now, all of that is being prepared while you here speak about something. Now he will talk about Putin.
And they're working tirelessly to do that. For NATO, it's clear. For the whole of NATO, Russia is the long-term threat. Even if this war will come to an end, let's not be naive about Russia. Nobody is naive about Russia. But when it comes to ending the war, I think it is important that the Americans are trying this, working closely with the Ukrainians, informing and updating constantly the Europeans, the French and the Brits, coming up with very practical suggestions on the next steps if we would get to a ceasefire or peace deal.
Give me a goddamn... Where am I? Here we go. Give me a goddamn break. So what we know is what Ukraine will do and has been doing is sacrificing everything. Its best people, losing its best people, sacrificing everything and everyone to defend its sovereignty, its existence at this point. Now, what will you do? Aside from wearing suits and meeting in London, meeting in Paris, meeting everywhere, I understand what Macron is trying to do. I understand what the new coming Chancellor of Germany is trying to do, rebuild Germany, but also with Macron and Starmer together to rebuild this coalition of the willing. I know what they're doing. I don't know what NATO is doing. And maybe, yes, maybe Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly is right for not putting 5% into defense spending and allocating it towards NATO. Because with the leaders as such, who facilitates more military equipment purchases from the United States by Europeans, including those terms and conditions that DC can decide what this will be used against and not used against, with the leader like this, NATO is obsolete. It's the same way as I call United Nations waste of real estate in New York City. That I agree with Trump with. Because Russia is still at the table at Security Council after killing people, butchering people. Israel is still talking. Nobody's talking about anybody. U.S. is aligning itself with Israel and Russia. Meanwhile, everything is just going to klookety-klook. And people are wearing fancy suits, driving fancy cars, living in fancy apartments, and having dinners and talks and more talks. And the biggest thing they can do is condemn something. Waste of everything. Now, on a good note, here's Ukrainian soldier. This is the video that I want to show you. It's really cute. He returned back, and look at the cat that met him and never ever wanted him to leave. Take a look.
Зустрілися аж у багачки. Як кота звать?
Малиш.
Кот Малиш і дядя Сеня. Собственною персоною. Як обняв.
Happy cat and with the happy owner. They were saying that the cat's name is the little one, malicious little one, and that he's just pouring and just sticking with the owner. Meanwhile, you know what Russians are doing? They taking children to the war zone, to the war front, as a new safari to teach them how to kill Ukrainians. And if you think those are boys, no, it's girls. There's a video, it's proven. Take a look. That's what do you want to show your daughter, huh? Safari. Killing Ukrainians. Messed up. Yeah, Lynn, that's messed up. It's like, and then there was this show, like a Russian show, where they were speaking to the widows, and they said, what do you think? Like, your husband died, or your kids and all that kind of stuff. Like, what do you think about them dying? They're like, well, but they're unemployed anyway. They're just drinking, becoming alcoholics. And this way they passed, and now we have some money. So now we have an apartment. We constantly will be subject to some pension fund or whatever, because he died in the war defending the country, actually harassing another country. But okay. Besides that, it's just all messed up. But it has an economic explanation, and women are supporting it. And she's like, okay, I lost 4 children, but I can't wait to give birth to another child so I can lose that too, because now I have an apartment and I have a car, but I actually want a house. So messed up is an understatement. It is an understatement. Which I don't want to leave you on the messed up note. I want to see what happens. Our live stream show you Trump videos, because last week it was like over 2 hours, and because I showed you all the Trump thing, what he says, and this time I decided to read it out. So tell me if you liked it or you want to go back to quoting him and or showing him speak. But this time without that, it's much shorter. So let me know what you think. But before we talk about anything else, I want to show you a clip, which was sort of a thing posted by former officials of the Biden administration, just to show the difference between what we have now and what we had before. Is wholesome. Whatever you think about Biden, he did or didn't do, he is a decent man, and this was way different. So take a look.
One at a time. Come on over here. Sit in this chair.
Oh, really? I might cry.
Uh-oh. President of the United States of America. Madam President. All right, slide you up. Well, welcome to the Oval Office.
Good to see you again.
How are you?
Great.
I can't believe I made you. You're something. Oh my, what a thrill.
Oh, we love it.
Thanks for the lights up the Oval Office. How are you? How you doing, man?
How are you? Well, how are you?
Better for seeing you. If you look around of all the busts and all the pictures, what we've done is to set a sense of what we want to do as an administration. Two political heroes, Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King. Cesar Chavez.
I don't know if this is acceptable, but I'm gonna hug you anyway.
There's no greater job I have in protecting Americans and bringing Americans who are wrongfully held home. That folder right there, that's my schedule for the day.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I know. I brought some friends I want to see. Oh. Tell you what, closest I came to the moon was my moon rock here. Proud of you guys.
I agree with you. Was it Lynn? Lynn said, no, Penny. Thank you, Penny. He respected the office. And that's what it's all about. And my question is this, right? As somebody from you commented this week, were we ever this shining city on the hill? Or was it just good PR, right? And at that point, it's even so sad that we have to question that, because how fast everything sort of fell apart, how little elected officials would do to prohibit it, and it's still not meeting the time and effort from the other side, remains to be seen. You know, I was always of the opinion that anything will end if the market would tell President Trump not to do certain things. But at this point, it's a reversal. If you ask me, again, my opinion is that the goal here is to create sort of martial law or something of that nature, where the White House will decide what will be imported, what will be exported, and will have control over every single aspect of our lives. That's what I think we're headed to. But I hope I'm wrong. I wish to be wrong. It just quacks like a duck and walks like a duck. And so we'll see what will happen. I think this upcoming week will show. Also, we have to see what does happen with Europe plus Canada and that coalition of the willing, how fast they will be able to pivot and help Ukraine. Because if that somehow stagnates, I've seen a video, and unfortunately it's in Ukrainian, so I couldn't show it to you, but Ukrainian forces are saying the worst thing is freezing the conflict, because they said we lost so many of our best people. Russia is in a shit show. They're running even out of North Koreans. They're running out of equipment. They're begging North Korea and China and Iran to help them and physically help them. So they're so weak that now is the best moment to push them out. And so my question is, will the coalition of the willing, because given what NATO and Rutte says, I don't even counting on it, but will be the coalition of the willing able to meet the moment and stop Russia in Ukraine, defend them there? Or will this Trump PR show continue, ultimately freezing the conflict and then allowing Russia to get more equipment, get more people? They're drafting 160,000 people for what? Do you think they're going to grow flowers? They're going to go to Belarus. And Belarus, if you look at the map, is very close to Kiev. To defeat the beast, you got to take it by the head. And the head is Kiev in this constellation. So that the weeks, next week, the week after will show. Will they be able to meet the moment, or will they drown into this talks and just lack of action altogether, right? Is it allowed? Is it Article 5, Article 2, Article 1, and blah, blah, blah? Because if the Russian aggression is frozen in Ukraine, and Ukraine is not militarized, it doesn't have any forces in it, it doesn't have enough to defend itself, and so Russia just gathers more power to go then into Baltic states. Meanwhile, US gets those 90,000 troops out of Eastern Europe and then goes towards Indo-Pacific. Meanwhile, completely dismantling essentially NORTHCOM, and then this opens the north, right, for Canada and Greenland. This opens the front there, and so Russia and China will just go that way, or worst comes to worst, Canada votes for Pierre Poilievre, who says, okay, I'm going to align with the United States, and United States will align with Russia, so we all can protect our now common north against the Chinese. A lot of things will happen in April. Canadian election is April 28th. On April 17th, they have a debate, I think in French, and 18th in English. I'm going to show you the one in English. Why does it matter? I don't have a dog in the fight. Neither are you if you're in the United States or anywhere outside Canada. But somehow we all kind of do. So for that reason, we have to keep our head on a swivel, and a lot of things will be decided in April. And if you think historically, April and spring itself is a very, in newsletters every day, I feature Today in History. And you see that in April, the World War I, World War II, it had major developments as to starting, finishing, and whatnot. A lot of things are happening in spring, not in the summer or fall. So we have to see. We have to see what will happen. First Tube, hello. April 20th is the deadline for a report from DOD and DHS on whether the Use of Insurrection Act after the martial law. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see. A couple of weeks to go. The coalition of the willing is good at talking and having meetings. Exactly, James. Yeah, and I wish to say that, hey, James, you're wrong. No, but you're not. Until we see the action, right? Don't watch the tweets, watch the deeds. Because we can say one thing about the whole Trump MAGA movement. They're aligned, they're prepared, they're proactive, they're defending each other like their life depends on it, which it kind of does. And at this point, nobody is meeting that moment in terms of conquering them as united, as powerful, and as much defending each other instead of going against each other, which what we are seeing in the Democratic Party. So at this point, we have to see what happens on the inside. We have to see what happens geopolitically. Canada plays a big role as much as Coalition of the Willing plays a big role because, China and Taiwan is sort of like the next thing on the menu, which I don't think China is interested in a war. their economy suffered tremendously after COVID. They're artificially boosting their economy at this point because it was very much dependent on real estate, which now is, unfortunate in China as much as everywhere. So at this point, for them to go to war, they have to shift their entire economy into a war mode, which Russia already did. For China, it's not really the idea. So if they were to even take over Taiwan, then, they just can do more exercises, block the ports. It's an island. In 2 weeks of time, they're going to get there. Will U.S. defend Taiwan as much as Secretary of Defense Hexas says so? I don't think so. If Trump gets something on the hand, in simple terms, I don't think it will happen. So, yeah, we put bombers, we put, everything, missiles included, into Indo-Pacific to bolster, our defense against China. Hexas, it himself says that China is provoking us. China is not really provoking us. At this point, it's laughing. Because it's going to make a lot of money through the tariffs because U.S. will not stop buying and importing from China. It's going to get slower, but they're going to tariff everything that comes from U.S. and get the money back. That's just, at this point, it just makes little sense. Everything that does happen makes little sense. And Penny, yes, Trump crypto. That's how he gets paid for every policy that he implements. That's a very legal way to bribe somebody. And just imagine you're a director of, again, allegedly, right? We don't see anybody's bank statements. But if you're, let's say, director of a company and you have a crypto account and you decide where or whom you're going to award a certain production contract, and suddenly your crypto account is, getting donations, and then you decide. And somehow the one that you gave the contract to is the one who accidentally gave you the best donation and the biggest one. So combine 2 + 2, right? They could fit Trump's brain inside the Easter eggs. And by the way, about the Easter. So next week is Passover. We'll be live. I understand if you can't watch and whatnot, but and the week after is Easter. And so for Easter, White House has monetized the egg roll, right? So the companies can pay from $75,000 to $100,000 to put their branding everywhere, from Easter eggs to banners to website to like a little booklet that they're going to give out to everybody, included also to put on reporters. So they even mentioned this in this price thing, that you can put anything on CNN's Collins, right? On her anywhere, like Caitlin Collins, would wear somebody's label, or I don't know what the hell. So it's just very much illegal, very much crazy. Will CNN get a cut from it? I don't know. It's wild. For that reason, today people were asking if I go to the egg roll. No. I'm invited every day. I'm invited tomorrow to the Dodgers and the Netanyahu and Easter egg roll and whatever. I'm just not looking forward to it. I think I can do a better job here, which leads me to this. We're going to have an event. It's called Made in Canada, because we will boost Canadian businesses. I want the world to kind of get to know them. This has been in the works for quite some time. And so it will be an event. I was deciding between the series, and I have announced the series. Today, I'm thinking it should be a live event where founders are coming live. They're sharing their stories. They're presenting their products. They show us how to buy things. Maybe they have some sale going on. And then we speak with politicians, with the Liberal Party leaders in Canada that kind of support the Buy Canadian type of notion. And we also get to know what they're struggling with, how the tariffs do affect them. I would love to do the same thing in the United States, but as soon as I started inquiring about it today, I was labeled misinformation, because apparently small businesses will blossom with those tariffs. So you better shut up. So for that reason, we're going to start with Canada. I think in a few months' time, U.S. businesses will be ready to be boosted. So on this note, that's what's going to come up next. And of course, our what's actually true. I started some disinformation debunking videos, branding it what's actually true, but ultimately it leads to our podcast where politicians will get a chance to debunk disinformation told about them or about their policies and answer your questions on the podcast. So that's what's coming up next. And we're going to have different leaders, including European Parliament members from different countries like Austria and others, plus US based, plus Canada based, and also others from overseas as well. Okay, first tube is Canadian. Great idea. Yay. Okay, so if you're Canadian and you know any business owner, or perhaps you are a business owner, the latest Canada, the weekly recap that I published yesterday has a link to a Google form. And I put it also in my Instagram and all my bios. Fill it out about your information. It's really like, what do you do? Where you at? Like, what's your website? Are you suffering from tariffs? Yes or no? It doesn't really matter. But so we can get businesses together so you can be invited to this event. I also will be holding on the 8th of April on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, a Google Meet for those who are interested to share the details, how this will go. So you can ask me questions and I can answer those questions. I'm also going to record a video about that event and publish it tomorrow. So you can share it and invite people to join. Love Canada, too cold for me. Penny, I feel you. I feel you. Yeah. Okay. So, all right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. This was wonderful, shorter than last time, but people were complaining it's too long, so I hope it hits the spot at this time. So again, keep your head on a swivel, stay positive. We don't have any other option. Speak out. Tap those 3 dots on social media when you're seeing misinformation, say not interested, call it spam, report it. You decide what the algorithm presents to you. Don't swallow and go, right? Just see what the misinformation gives you. And also speak out. As much as people were marching yesterday, post content, speak out. You have a voice. We still can use it. Maybe not for long, but as long as we can, let's use it. You don't have to be cursing around or be negative or fighting somebody, but really speaking out is something that we owe to our allies, maybe at this point former allies, but so they see that there are good people. It really, really matters. Okay, Lynn says, thanks for the live news stream. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, First Tube from Canada. Thank you, James. Thank you, everyone who commented. I will see you next week at 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't relax, Canada. Elbows up. Yes, James. Absolutely. On this note, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. See you next week. And if you are a Canadian business owner, please come on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be our private Google Meet where I'm going to share some more details about the series or our live stream. So by that time, we already know. Okay? Thank you for watching. Have a peaceful night and a great start of the week.